Okay, so imagine this for a second. The entire governing board of your neighborhood just completely implodes. That is exactly what happened at the Lakeshore at Andersen Springs Homeowners Association. A pretty simple dispute kicked off a full-scale meltdown that left just one person standing to deal with all the chaos.
And this whole fiasco, it really brings up a wild question, doesn't it? I mean, what actually happens when an HOA board just vanishes, leaving only one person holding the bag?
By March of 2018, this wasn't some hypothetical scenario. The entire board was gone, all of them, except for one sole director, a woman named Bonnie Henden. So how on earth does the governing body of an entire community just disappear? Well, as it turns out, it all started with a fight over vacation rentals.
The very first crack in the foundation, the thing that started this whole avalanche, was an issue that a lot of communities deal with: how some owners were using their properties. And yeah, we're talking about short-term rentals. Now, you'd think this would be simple, right? The community's own rule book, their CC&Rs, seem to have a really clear stance on this. If you look at Section 8.13, it says it right there in black and white. All leases shall be for a minimum of 6 months, period.
So the line in the sand was drawn pretty clearly. Long-term leases, 6 months or more, totally fine, no problem there. But these short-term hotel-style rentals, the kind you see all over VRBO or Airbnb, that was a direct violation. And this single distinction, well, it became the fuse for the explosion that was about to happen.
And here's where it gets really messy. The people allegedly breaking this rule, they weren't just any old homeowners. The accusation was that two sitting board members, Jim Luzzis and Jerry Dubasquier, were renting out their own units as short-term VRBOs. This put the rest of the board in an incredibly awkward spot. I mean, what do you do when your own colleagues are the ones being accused of breaking the rules?
So, the board's response was, well, it was a move you almost never see. A decision that would absolutely ignite a legal firestorm. They decided to fire their own directors.
On January 4th, 2018, it all came to a head. After what I'm sure was a very tense meeting, the board took a vote, and they did the unthinkable. They officially removed two of their own, Luzzis and Dubasquier, right from their director positions.
And the fallout from that decision was immediate, and it was catastrophic. Just look at this timeline. You can see how fast everything just unraveled. So January, the two directors get removed. The very next month, February, those same directors file a formal complaint with the state. By March, the other directors start resigning, saying they're trying to restore calm. And boom, by April, Bonnie Henden is the last one standing.
This left Henden in a truly impossible situation. The HOA was now being sued by the very directors it had just kicked out, and she was the only one left to deal with it. This led to a very strange chapter in this story. A lawsuit nobody fought.
So really, what would you do if you were in her shoes? You are the entire board. The association is being sued. After talking to 3 different lawyers, Henden made a pretty shocking choice. She refused to defend the HOA. That's right, instead of fighting the lawsuit, she just went ahead and reinstated the 2 directors. But this move just kicked the can down the road, creating a brand new problem when another homeowner, Peter Biondi, filed his own complaint, arguing Henden had failed in her duty to the association.
So, Biondi's complaint lands this entire tangled mess in front of an administrative law judge, who now has the job of sorting through all this chaos and delivering a final decisive ruling.
And the entire case, all of it, boiled down to one fundamental legal question that the board had apparently gotten completely wrong from the very beginning. Who actually has the legal authority to remove a director?
And the answer, as it turns out, wasn't hiding in the HOA's rulebook at all. The judge pointed to a higher authority, Arizona state law. And this established a supercritical principle. When your HOA rules conflict with state law, guess what? The state always wins. State law gets the final say.
And the law on this was crystal clear. A board of directors simply cannot police its own members or kick them off the board. It's not in their power. Which means that original vote back on January 4th was legally meaningless from the moment it happened.
The judge then spelled out the correct way to do this according to state law. And it doesn't start with the board at all. It starts with the homeowners. They have to sign a petition. Then the board is required to call a special meeting. And finally, in that meeting, the vote belongs to the homeowners themselves. The big takeaway here, the power to remove was never, ever in the board's hands to begin with.
So this all brings us to the biggest lesson from this entire bizarre case.
And it's a lesson that applies to just about every planned community out there. Who really holds the power?
This is really the fundamental balance of power in an HOA. On one side, you have the board. They manage the day-to-day stuff, filling vacancies, enforcing rules, handling the money. But the ultimate power, the power to elect directors, to change the core rules, and most importantly, to remove directors, that power belongs and only belongs to the homeowners.
And so, the judge's final decision came down squarely in favor of the one-woman board. Bonnie Henden was right. The board's first action was illegal from the start, and trying to defend it in court would have been, in the judge's own words, an ill-advised act, and just a complete waste of the association's money.
This whole saga, from a simple argument about rentals all the way to a total board collapse, is just this powerful reminder of how community governance is supposed to work. And it leaves us with one final question for you to think about. In your community, who really holds the power?